Hello, this is AndHeGames here, and it's all about the small things. This is a new series I'm launching with this video called It's All About the Small Things that I'm just going to use to talk about some relatively small, subtle design details in different games that I like or dislike. Why is this important? Well, why should we care about small details and design elements that really maybe don't seem like they would make that much of a difference in the long run? Well, these are important because when people are interacting with something designed, they don't, and they're having a frustrating experience, they don't tend to blame the design itself. They tend to blame themselves. And so if they're playing a game that is frustrating to them, they can't figure out how to interact with the menus or whatever, they blame themselves. And one moment, this music is really distracting. There we go. Okay. They tend to put it down to themselves and think that the game is just bad. And besides, even if your game is really good, which FTL is fantastic, I love FTL, you want to minimize the amount of experiences that people have that are frustrating, negative experiences. And so I'm going to be, in this series, it's about the small things, I'm going to be just showing you a few little details of design and bad design, good design, things that could be improved in these games. So we're starting off with FTL, which again is fantastic, one of my favorite games. I keep coming back to it just because it's so replayable and it's just so good. If you haven't played FTL, I strongly encourage you to get it. They've just released an expansion that is wonderful, adds a whole bunch of new stuff, and it's free, so you don't have to buy any DLC or anything like that. So give it a try. But I'll be picking at their design a little bit. They have improved a couple areas of their design with the expansion, but a couple they've left untouched. And so, yeah, let's begin. So here in the hangar screen, the first thing that kind of frustrates me about the screen is changing your ship's name. Now, I would expect to be able to go up here and just double click on the name, but that doesn't do anything. And so you have to actually go over and click the rename button, which really, this button doesn't even need to be here. You just make it so you can double click on the name like you would expect to work. You would expect it to work that way, instead of having to go over and click the button and then, type in your name. Yeah, so that's a little annoying, and you also, you can't go in there and change something without re-clicking the rename button. And by the way, I can't, if I wanted to capitalize my name, the Dungboat 2, I can't use the mouse anymore, so it's kind of locked me into this using the keyboard to space back to the D, and so that's a little bit frustrating and a little bit broken, so that could certainly be worked on. Down here with the crew, though, they actually have added this, click to rename, so you don't have to click customize, and then, it used to be, I believe in the first version, you had to actually click customize to change the name. And then you couldn't even click on this, which you still can't. You have to click the rename button. Why not just make it so they could click on the name and change it? But now you can actually click here and rename them, but with a caveat. So let's say I decide to name this person Starbuck. And then let's go to a different ship because I don't really like the Kestrel. We're going to go to this one. Okay, so this guy's name is Frederick. Okay, this guy's name is Neckbone. And this guy's name is Critty. Okay, so I've entered all their names and that's nice and easy, but then I notice that, oh, I have a typo. I really want neckbone to be capitalized. Okay, so I click on here, and the first thing I try to do is I try to click back and try to select the in, but I can't because it's just clicking me in and out of the dialog. So the next thing I try to do is what I would do up here, which is use my arrow keys to space back through the name. But no, actually that changes your ships, and suddenly all of my names are obliterated. So that's broken. Once you click on here, you should be able to select something with your mouse. It should have a little X button or something, so you can change things with your mouse, or at least key through it without changing your ships and obliterating your progress. I mean, now I have to go rename all my characters again. I can't even remember what I named them. So my cool names are gone because this thing doesn't work the way you expect it to. So if I have a really super long name, I'm going to have to delete the whole thing and retype the whole thing if I have one little typo with my name. So bravo on making it the click to rename, but it's still kind of broken. So that really should be fixed. Another thing. Okay, so Layout C is something new that's in the Advanced Edition. And there doesn't seem to be any... with Layout B, you complete 2 of these objectives to get the Layout B, but this doesn't really say at all how to get Layout C. And I had to do some digging to figure out exactly how you do that. And actually, it's in this dialog up here that you click List, and then it shows all these ships, and you have to click Type C, and then it will actually tell you once you hover over them, oh, that's how you get Type C, but it's kind of hidden away. And then I realized that, okay, even though the menu out here has been completely mouse-driven, there's no mouse-driven way of getting out of this dialog. There's no X, you can't click outside the window, so you actually have to reach up and hit Escape to get out of that window. So that's frustrating and should be fixed. Okay, but that's about it with this screen here, the hangar screen. Now we're going to move on. Start the game here. And we're just going to jump about. Now, I've been beating on FTL pretty harshly on the hangar screen there, but I want to point out a few things that are incredible that they've just added with the expansion. By the way, I kind of like that I can choose to make my crew members completely nameless. So they're just kind of anonymous crew members. That's kind of fun. But I'm going to jump here, and we'll go to this map of the different beacons that I can jump to. And notice as I mouse over them, it will show me all the different beacons that I can jump to from that beacon. It was not this way in the original version of FTL. And I'm so glad that they did this, because it was broken before. Because sometimes you would jump to a beacon and you would think, say, this beacon. It's not really that clear whether or not that will jump to the exit beacon. So sometimes you would jump to a beacon thinking that would jump to the exit beacon, and it wouldn't, and so you'd be trapped. Because if you've played FTL before, you know, let me just jump around a little bit more here, you know that you're being pursued by the rebels. Oh, now I have to fight someone. You're being pursued by the rebels, and the rebels are, every time you jump, they advance a little bit. And so you have to be careful not to jump around too much before exiting the sector, because then they will catch up and they will destroy you. Well, so they advance a set amount each turn, and if you don't know whether or not your jump is going to take you in range of the exit, for sure, you can easily get caught out when you don't feel like you should be. And so that's a problem, because I really should beat the ship, otherwise it's going to be a short video. That's a problem because players should really feel like their failure is kind of their fault. I mean, sometimes it's random chance and stuff, but you know, if it's just a game design flaw, the reason you died is because you got trapped in a place that looked like it should have connected to the exit or something. That a player doesn't really feel that it's their fault that happened, and so that makes them frustrated with the game and all that. And so you really that was a wonderful decision on the devs' part. to add those lines into the beacon map. So there's that. And another design decision that they made with the expansion that is beautiful and wonderful, that makes the game a lot less frustrating to play, is you can take your guys, your crew members, and put them in places, and then click this button, which assigns their posts, basically. Yeah, so it saves their positions, and then you can return them to those positions wherever they are. So, for example, if my guys got hurt, and I sent them to the med bay, then I can just press this button when they're done healing, and they all go back to their places. This is amazing, because I can't tell you how many times I was playing FTL, and my crew members I just forgot about them, and I left them somewhere else, or they got mixed up. I wasn't quite sure which crew members were which, and they got to the wrong positions. And so this allows me to much more optimize as they gain experience for the different places, make sure that they're in there as much as they can be, and the right person gets to the right place. And I don't have to do a lot of clicking around and stuff. Another thing I wanted to mention with just the usability of FTL is they've done so many things right with the heads-up display, with all of the different ways that you can select people. So I was kind of picking apart FTL a little bit and looking at the different ways you can move people around, and you can select them by clicking on them and move them around to room, which is a little finicky, but useful if you need to, do something precisely. Or you can click on their picture up here. And then I figured out a third way that I had a whole bunch of damaged crew members, and they were just running around damaged. And I really wanted to send them all back to the med bay, but there isn't a button for that. And by the way, that might be helpful, a send all to med bay button. But I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if I could just drag a box and select a certain number of crew members? And so in frustration, I just kind of dragged, and actually there's a box that you can drag and select certain crew members, which was amazing. It kind of blew my mind that they put that in, and I didn't know about it for a very long time. But that's wonderful. So all the different ways that you can select people, it makes it a very powerful kind of, and also hotkeys. Hotkeys are the fourth way. Each character has their hotkey, F1, F2, F3, etc. So that's wonderful that they've accommodated for different play styles and different expectations. I don't tend to use hotkeys very much, but I know there are people who are real crazy power users who, or power gamers who love memorizing all the hotkeys and playing a very strong game that way. But I am much more of the kind of visual, like I love dragging a box around a couple crew members and sending them somewhere because it works like Photoshop, and it's much more visual and less abstract. I don't have to think about having key numbers and all that stuff. I occasionally use hotkeys, but not very much. So that's wonderful, and I will accept your offer. And it's good to remember that just because you expect one thing and you play a game in a certain way, it doesn't mean that everyone will want to play it that way, and that will be intuitive for everyone. So you need to design for kind of the intuition of multiple people, and the creators of FTL have done it, certainly, in the many different ways that you can select and rearrange your crew members. One thing I would like to just say as a sidebar a little bit, it would be really nice if there was a send all to med bay button, and if the crew members were smart enough to go to the med bay, and since there are only 3 spots inside the med bay, if they were smart enough to queue up outside the med bay in separate rooms, and then once someone was healed, then they go back to their station and the next person comes in, and then once that person's healed, they go back to their station and the next person goes in. Because that would minimize a lot of the just kind of messing around after a battle when everyone's hurt. If you could just click queue up for medbay, guys, and they all head off to the medbay and they all get healed, that would be wonderful. Or maybe if you just, if your medbay was operational, you could just heal them automatically, without actually having to click through it, because it's just busy work in the end. It's just busy work that isn't very fun, and you want your players to be having fun. So that's really about everything on this episode of It's the Small Things. Let me know what you think about this new video format, and if there are any games that you'd like me to talk about the small design details, draw some design lessons from that, and just let me know. I'm AndHeDrew from AndHeGames.com. You can find me at AndHeGames on Twitter, and I'll see you next time. Addendum. Here's something that I noticed that is spectacular. Okay, so this is a design improvement from the regular edition to the advanced edition, and I just want to give the devs props for adding this. Okay, so when I select a beam weapon, look at this. Okay, so it didn't do this before. I can click, and I can drag the beam weapon over different rooms to see how many rooms I can hit with the beam. And look, it highlights what rooms I'm hitting. Oh my gosh, so I actually know if I'm hitting that room with the little edge of the beam. Ah! Oh, thank you.